Before we go any further, make sure you're subscribed to the Legacy of Survival channel and share this video with anyone who takes history seriously, because what we're about to cover is not trivia. This is applied history. These small kits decided who lived long enough to come home and who didn't. And once you understand how they worked, you'll never look at survival gear or modern preparedness the same way again. Now let's get straight into it. When World War II pilots were shot down over oceans, jungles, deserts, or enemy-held territory, they didn't have backpacks, bug-out bags, or rescue teams waiting nearby. What they had was a pocket survival kit, often small enough to fit in a flight suit pocket or strapped discreetly to a parachute harness. These kits were not comfort items. They were distilled survival logic, stripped down to the bare minimum needed to keep a human alive long enough to be recovered. Every item earned its place through blood, trial, and failure. The most iconic of these was the survival kit issued to Allied aircrews, especially those flying for the United States Army Air Forces and the Royal Air Force. These kits varied by theatre of war, but, well, the philosophy remained constant. Signalling, hydration, navigation and morale came first, and everything else was secondary. The core of the World War II pocket survival kit was signalling. A downed pilot could be physically uninjured and still die simply because no one could find him. This is why signal mirrors were almost universal. Polished metal mirrors with a sighting hole allowed pilots to flash sunlight accurately across miles. This was not guesswork. Pilots were trained to aim the reflection using the hole to bracket aircraft or ships. Modern survivalists still use this technique, and it remains more reliable than batteries, electronics, or radios in austere conditions. The lesson here is simple and, well, brutally relevant today. If rescue is possible, your first priority is being seen, not being comfortable. Next came water procurement, because dehydration kills faster than hunger and, honestly, often faster than exposure. Many World War II kits included chemical water purification tablets, often iodine-based, along with collapsible rubber containers. In jungle and Pacific theatres, this was absolutely essential. Pilots were taught not to trust clear water and not to waste energy boiling unless absolutely necessary. The practical application today is, well, obvious. Carrying purification tablets weighs almost nothing, costs very little, and instantly turns stagnant or questionable water into a life-extending resource. Airmen didn't debate this. It was standard because it worked. Food in these kits was intentionally minimal. Hard candies, glucose tablets, or concentrated emergency rations were common. These were not meant to sustain long-term survival, but to stabilize blood sugar, reduce shock, and preserve mental clarity. That last point matters. Many after-action reports show that pilots who stayed mentally sharp made better decisions, avoided enemy patrols, and used their gear correctly. In modern terms, this is why, compact, fast-energy food still belongs in any serious survival kit. The World War II model teaches restraint. Calories were tools, not comfort. Navigation was handled with compact silk maps and tiny compasses. Silk maps, well, they deserve special attention. They didn't tear, didn't rot when wet, and could be folded endlessly without noise. Pilots escaping occupied Europe used them to move by night, often navigating by rivers, rail lines, and terrain features rather than roads. This reinforces a critical survival principle. Navigation is about understanding terrain, not memorizing routes. Even today, a map you understand is more valuable than GPS that can fail, break, or, even give away your position. Fire-starting tools were present, but limited. Small ferro rods or waterproof matches were included, but fire was treated cautiously. Fire meant warmth and sterilization, but it also meant visibility. Airmen were trained to use fire only when concealment was no longer the priority. This is an important corrective to modern survival culture, which often, I think, overemphasizes fire without context. World War II kits remind us that survival is always situational. Sometimes warmth really matters. Other times, silence and darkness can be far more important. One of the most underestimated items in these kits was, interestingly, the sewing needle and thread. And this wasn't just for comfort repairs, it was actually for medical improvisation, gear repair, and even for removing parasites. In jungle theatres, pilots would use needles to drain blisters or remove thorns and leeches. It's a good reminder, really, that survival tools ought to be multifunctional, not just specialized. Every gram must justify itself in multiple scenarios. In the world of survival, even the tiniest bit of weight has to earn its place, Morale items were also included, and historians often overlook them. Small religious tokens, photos, or lucky charms were sometimes officially issued or personally added. This was not sentimentality. Far from it. Military psychologists had already learned that hope keeps people moving and movement keeps people alive. From a modern preparedness standpoint, this really does reinforce the reality that mental endurance is as critical as physical gear. What makes the Second World War pocket survival kit so relevant today is not really the gear itself, but the philosophy behind it. You see, these kits were designed by studying failure. Every addition came from someone who, sadly, didn't make it back. And every omission was, entirely intentional. They prioritized rescue, clarity of thought, and adaptability over comfort and excess. If you were to apply this knowledge today, the steps are, pretty straightforward. First, strip your own survival kit down and ask yourself what truly helps you be found, hydrated, and oriented. Second, favor tools that work without power and without perfect conditions. Third, train with your gear until you can use it under stress, because, WWII pilots didn't learn this after being shot down. They learned it before takeoff. This is why these kits saved lives when everything else was lost. Not because they were advanced, but because they were honest about what survival actually demands. If this kind of deep, practical history matters to you, subscribe to the Legacy of Survival channel, share this video with fellow historians and survivalists, and stay with us as we continue uncovering the hard-earned lessons written into history by those who had no margin for error.